At 24, Navy SEAL Adam Walker brought home an 8-week-old German Shepherd puppy named Max. The puppy chewed through his boots, ignored his commands, and slept beside the front door whenever Adam left for deployment. Years passed. The young dog grew strong. The young soldier became a husband and father. And beneath the same porch light, both of them quietly began to grow older. 14 years after their first photograph together, Adam returned from the base still wearing his Navy uniform, and found Max too weak to follow him one more time. What had those 14 years taken from them? What had Max taught a man who once believed fear should always be hidden? And when the final morning arrived, could Adam give his oldest friend the one command no soldier ever wants to speak? This is a fictional story created for storytelling purposes. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Early autumn settled gently over Virginia Beach, carrying salt from the Atlantic and the faint metallic scent of rain. The streets near Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek were still damp from an overnight shower, and the rented houses stood in neat rows beneath a pale morning sky. Adam Walker had lived in one of those houses for 7 months, though little inside suggested that anyone had truly made a home there. At 24, Adam was younger than strangers expected a Navy SEAL to be. He stood just over 6 feet tall, with a lean, powerful build shaped by years of swimming, running, and carrying more weight than most men would willingly lift. His dark brown hair was cut close at the sides, his jaw sharply defined, and a thin scar crossed the edge of his left eyebrow. He usually kept his face clean-shaven, not because he cared about appearance, but because routine required fewer decisions than preference. Around other people, Adam was calm, polite, and difficult to read. He remembered names, held doors open, and rarely raised his voice. Yet kindness came more easily to him as an action than as an emotion. He could help a stranger change a tire without hesitation, then spend an entire evening avoiding a phone call from someone who loved him. Inside his house, everything had a place. His boots stood beneath a bench with their toes aligned. Shirts hung according to color and purpose. The kitchen counter held only a coffee maker, a knife block, and a ceramic bowl containing 3 identical green apples. Adam did not think of himself as lonely. Loneliness sounded passive, almost indulgent. He preferred to call his life efficient. That belief lasted until a truck stopped outside his house, and a German Shepherd puppy climbed onto his kitchen floor. The truck belonged to Adam's teammate, Eric Lawson, a broad, red-haired man of 29 with a freckled face, a thick mustache, and the permanently amused expression of someone who had survived too many serious situations to treat ordinary life with proper respect. Eric was transferring overseas with his wife, and the military housing available to them would not allow the puppy they had recently taken from an accidental litter. "You said you were thinking about getting a dog," Eric reminded him. "I said dogs were useful. That is almost affection coming from you." The puppy sat between them, staring at Adam with dark brown eyes that seemed far too thoughtful for a creature who had just tried to eat the corner of a cardboard box. He was 8 weeks old, with black and tan fur that looked too thick for his narrow body, oversized paws, a round belly, and one ear beginning to rise while the other folded sideways. His muzzle was mostly black, and a pale tan patch marked each eyebrow, giving him a permanently skeptical expression. Eric had called him Max for 3 weeks. Adam decided the name was practical enough to keep. "He needs structure," Adam said. Eric looked down as Max attacked Adam's shoelace. "He appears to have a structure. It is based mainly on destruction." Adam crouched and removed the lace from the puppy's mouth. Max immediately bit the cuff of his sleeve. Eric laughed so hard he had to turn away. Adam had completed exhausting training exercises without complaint. He had crossed freezing water in darkness, gone without sleep, and learned to function while every part of his body demanded that he stop. Yet the small animal clinging to his sleeve produced a kind of confusion for which none of that training had prepared him. He had already purchased a crate, 2 stainless steel bowls, a leash, a collar, measured portions of puppy food, and a book about German Shepherd development. A handwritten schedule was attached to the refrigerator. Feeding at 7. Outside at 7:15. Basic obedience at 8. Rest at 9. Max urinated beneath the refrigerator before Eric's truck had left the street. By noon, the puppy had overturned his water bowl, dragged a dish towel into the hallway, and fallen asleep directly across the kitchen entrance. Adam stepped over him twice before finally lifting him onto the expensive dog bed beside the wall. Max woke, walked back to the doorway, turned in 3 circles, and went to sleep again. Most people would have laughed. Adam felt challenged. He began with the command, "Sit." Max stared at the piece of food in Adam's hand, jumped repeatedly, then wandered away to investigate a loose thread beneath the sofa. Adam tried again, lowering his voice into the steady tone that usually made younger sailors straighten their shoulders. "Max, sit." Max barked once and ran into the dining table. That afternoon, Rachel Walker arrived carrying a grocery bag in one hand and a small brass porch lamp in the other. At 57, Rachel was a compact woman with a straight-backed posture, soft brown skin marked by fine lines around the mouth, and thick, silver-streaked hair cut just above her shoulders. She wore dark jeans, a cream cardigan, and the practical walking shoes she insisted were comfortable enough for every occasion. Her hazel eyes were warm until someone tried to deceive her. Then they became precise. Rachel had worked as an elementary school librarian for nearly 30 years. She was patient with frightened children, injured birds, and strangers who could not find the correct bus. With Adam, patience was more complicated. She loved her son fiercely, but fear often sharpened that love into criticism. When Adam's father, Thomas, died suddenly from a heart attack 5 years earlier, Adam had responded by intensifying his training and applying for the most demanding path he could find. Rachel believed he had turned grief into ambition because ambition was easier to carry. Adam believed his mother had never forgiven him for choosing a life she could not protect. Rachel set down the groceries and looked at Max, who was chewing one of Adam's black boots. "I like him," she said. "He has been here 6 hours and already understands which possession matters most to you." Adam took the boot away. Max chased his hand, convinced the game had improved. Rachel walked through the living room, noticing the bare walls, the untouched guest room, and the absence of anything that served no practical purpose. She did not comment. Instead, she held up the brass lamp. "This goes outside. I already have an exterior light. You have a floodlight bright enough to interrogate the neighborhood." "This is a porch lamp." "I know what it is." "Then we are making progress." Adam followed her outside as she placed it on the small table beside the front door. The lamp had belonged to Rachel's father and was designed to resemble an old railway lantern with clear glass panels and a warm electric bulb inside. "A soldier's house shouldn't be completely dark when he comes home late," Rachel said. "I know where the door is." "It is not for finding the door." Adam looked at her, but Rachel was already adjusting the cord. The disagreement remained between them, unspoken but familiar. Rachel believed light meant someone was waiting. Adam believed waiting was only another form of worrying, and worry had never brought anyone safely home. Max wandered onto the porch and sat beneath the lamp. The warm glow softened the sharp black markings around his face. Rachel bent to touch him, but Max backed away and watched her hand. "Smart puppy," she murmured. "He does not trust everyone immediately." "He will learn." Rachel looked up at Adam. "That depends on what you teach him." After she left, the sky darkened quickly. Wind bent the young maple trees along the street, and rain struck the windows in hard, uneven bursts. Max became restless. He followed Adam from room to room, nails clicking across the floor. When thunder rolled over the coast, the puppy froze. Adam continued preparing dinner. Another crack sounded, closer this time. Max ran into the bedroom and disappeared beneath the bed. Adam knelt and looked into the darkness. 2 frightened eyes reflected the hallway light. "Come." Max pressed farther against the wall. Adam reached beneath the bed, caught the puppy gently around the chest, and pulled him out. Max struggled, his heart beating fast against Adam's hands. "There is nothing under there," Adam said, as though fear depended on evidence. He carried Max to the crate, placed him inside, and closed the door. "Down." "Stay." Max crouched against the back panel. Thunder shook the windows again. His small claws began scraping at the crate door. Adam returned to bed and switched off the lamp. The scratching continued. He told himself the puppy needed to learn. Giving in would reinforce the behavior. Consistency mattered. Rules created safety. But the sound persisted through the storm. Small claws against metal. Pause, then claws again. Near dawn, when the rain had softened and a gray light filled the room, Adam finally sat up. He crossed the hall and opened the crate. Max did not rush into his arms. The puppy stepped out slowly, moved several feet away, and lay down with his body facing the wall. His ears remained lowered. His eyes followed Adam carefully, no longer asking for rescue. Adam stayed beside the open crate, one hand resting uselessly on the floor. He had believed trust would grow naturally if food arrived on time and commands were clear. Looking at the distance Max had placed between them, Adam understood something no instructor had ever needed to teach him. Trust could be injured before it was strong enough to defend itself. Outside, the porch lamp was still burning. By the following summer, Virginia Beach had turned bright, humid, and restless. Heat shimmered above the roads near Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek. Afternoon storms rolled in without warning, and the air carried the mixed scent of salt water, hot pavement, and cut grass. Max was no longer the round-bellied puppy who could disappear beneath Adam Walker's bed. At 1 year old, the German Shepherd had grown into a tall, long-legged dog with a deep black saddle across his back, warm tan fur along his chest and legs, and alert brown eyes that studied every movement in the house. One ear still leaned slightly outward when he was tired, preserving a trace of the awkward puppy he had been. Max had learned to sit, stay, heel, and wait before touching his food. He could bring Adam's running shoes from the bedroom and distinguish the sound of Adam's truck from other vehicles on the street. Yet obedience had not erased his independence. If Adam's command appeared unreasonable, Max sometimes paused with an expression that seemed to ask whether the matter truly required his cooperation. Adam had learned not to mistake every hesitation for defiance, though patience still sat on him like an unfamiliar uniform. At 25, Adam looked older than he had a year before. The muscles across his shoulders had thickened, his face had become leaner, and the scar beside his left eyebrow appeared sharper against skin darkened by months of outdoor training. He remained controlled around other people, the kind of young man who listened without interrupting and revealed almost nothing he had not chosen in advance. Max had become the exception. Adam spoke to him while cooking, complained to him about broken equipment, and occasionally laughed when Max stole a sock and stood just beyond reach. The dog had slipped past defenses that human beings usually met as locked doors. The deployment orders arrived on a Monday morning. Adam read them twice at the kitchen counter while Max waited beside the back door for his walk. The assignment would take him away for several months. The exact length was uncertain, and uncertainty bothered Adam more than danger. Danger could be studied. It had procedures. Uncertainty simply sat in the room and refused to explain itself. Max nudged Adam's hand with his nose. "You cannot come," Adam said. Max wagged once, hearing only the familiar voice. Adam spent the next week preparing as though careful organization could prevent the separation from harming either of them. He bought extra food, replaced Max's identification tag, scheduled a veterinary checkup, and wrote 3 pages of instructions for Rachel. The first page listed meal quantities and times. The second covered exercise, commands, grooming, and acceptable treats. The third explained what to do if Max refused food, became restless, or showed signs of illness. Rachel stood in Adam's kitchen reading the papers over the top of her glasses. Her silver-streaked hair was tied loosely at the back of her neck, and the summer heat had brought color into her cheeks. She wore a pale blue blouse, canvas trousers, and the expression of a woman trying not to say the first thing that came into her mind. "You know I raised a child," she said. "Max is not a child." Rachel glanced down at the dog. "No, he is usually clearer about what he wants." Adam pointed to the feeding schedule. "Do not give him scraps. He will act hungry even after eating." "So did you at 16. This is not the same. It never is when you are the one giving instructions." The tension between them was familiar, but had changed shape. Rachel no longer argued openly about Adam's career. She had learned that opposition only made him close himself more tightly. Adam, for his part, still interpreted her questions as efforts to pull him back toward the life she would have chosen for him. Neither understood that both were afraid of the same thing, loving someone whose safety could never be guaranteed. On the morning Adam left, Max sensed the departure before the bags reached the truck. He followed Adam from room to room, pressing close enough that Adam nearly stepped on his paws. When Adam placed his duffel by the front door, Max stood between him and the handle. "Move." Max did not. Adam repeated the command. Max lowered his head but held his position. Rachel watched from the porch. "He knows. He knows the bag means something changes." "That is what I said." Adam clipped a leash to Max's collar and led him to Rachel's car. Max resisted at first, planting his paws on the pavement. Adam crouched and placed both hands around the dog's neck. "I will come back." The words sounded inadequate. Adam did not know whether dogs understood promises, but he knew human beings often made them because silence felt worse. Max licked Adam's chin once. Then Rachel guided him into the car. For the first 2 days at Rachel's house, Max barely ate. Her home sat on a quiet street several miles from Adam's rental, surrounded by mature oaks and gardens that had grown slightly wild since Thomas died. The rooms were warmer and more crowded than Adam's, filled with books, framed photographs, quilts, and small objects whose only purpose was memory. Max inspected everything but settled nowhere. He lay near the front door, lifting his head whenever tires moved over the road. Rachel followed Adam's instructions the first morning. She measured the food precisely, gave the correct command, and waited. Max looked at the bowl, then returned to the door. By evening, she added a spoonful of warm water to release the smell. Max ate only a little. "You are not starving yourself to make a point," Rachel told him. "That strategy has already been used by one Walker man, and it was never impressive." Max rested his chin on his paws. Rachel sat beside him, not touching him. She had learned from the first meeting that Max preferred to approach affection on his own terms. After several minutes, she began telling him about Adam as a boy, how he had slept in rain boots for a week because he wanted to be ready for floods, how he once carried an injured pigeon home inside his jacket, and how, after Thomas died, he had stopped mentioning anything that frightened him. Each evening, Rachel switched on the small railway-style lamp outside her front door. Its amber light spread across the porch and reached the hallway where Max slept. The ritual did not make him cheerful, but after a week he began eating full meals. After 2 weeks, he followed Rachel into the garden. He still returned to the door whenever a dark truck slowed outside. Adam called when he could. The conversations were brief and carefully ordinary. "Is he eating?" "Yes." "Any problems?" "He misses you." "That is not a medical problem." "No," Rachel said. "It is a living problem." Once she held the phone near Max. Adam said his name. Max's ears rose and he searched the room, moving from the phone to the front window and back again. After the call ended, he waited beside the door for 3 hours. Rachel did not repeat the experiment. Months later, Adam returned on a gray afternoon. He arrived at Rachel's house still wearing his working uniform, carrying a duffel over one shoulder. He looked thinner, with tired shadows beneath his eyes and a new stillness in the way he scanned the yard before approaching the porch. Rachel saw him through the window but did not call out. She opened the door and let Max decide what happened next. The German shepherd stepped onto the porch. Adam dropped his bag and waited for the reunion he had imagined during long nights away. He expected Max to run, jump, bark, perhaps knock him backward. Max did none of those things. The dog stood beneath the porch lamp, body rigid, nose working rapidly. He stared at Adam as though comparing the man before him with a memory that had begun to blur. Adam smiled and opened his arms. "Come on, Max." Max took one step, stopped, and looked toward Rachel. Something in Adam tightened. "He remembers me." "Of course he remembers. Then why is he standing there?" Rachel's answer came gently. "Because remembering someone and trusting that they will stay are not the same thing." Adam looked at her sharply. "You think I chose to leave?" "I think Max does not understand orders. He only understands that you vanished." Max finally moved forward. He walked slowly, circled Adam once, and sniffed the uniform, boots, hands, and duffel. Only then did he allow Adam to touch the side of his neck. His tail moved, but the greeting remained restrained, more examination than celebration. That evening, Adam brought Max back to the rental house. Everything looked exactly as he had left it. The boots remained aligned, the dishes were stacked, the porch lamp Rachel had installed still worked. Adam showered, changed clothes, and opened the bedroom door. "Up," he told Max, tapping the mattress. Max remained in the hallway. After a moment, he turned away and lay near the front door, facing the warm light beyond the glass. Adam could have repeated the command. A year earlier, he would have. Instead, he carried a blanket into the living room and lay on the floor several feet from Max. The house settled around them. Pipes clicked. A car passed. Max lifted his head, listened, then lowered it again. Near dawn, Adam woke to the faint sound of claws against wood. Max had moved closer by less than a foot. He still did not touch Adam, but Adam did not reach for him. For that night, the small distance Max had chosen was not rejection. It was the beginning of trust being rebuilt without force. 3 years later, spring came softly to Virginia Beach, warming the wet sand and filling the neighborhoods near Little Creek with the scent of salt, jasmine, and freshly cut grass. Adam Walker was 27 now, broader through the shoulders and steadier in the face, though the thin scar near his left eyebrow still sharpened his expression whenever he frowned. Max had grown into a powerful 3-year-old German Shepherd with a deep black saddle, muscular legs, a wide chest, and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to notice every mood Adam tried to hide. The awkward puppy ears had finally settled upright, though the left one still tilted outward when Max was tired. Years of training had made him reliable, but not obedient in the thoughtless way Adam once imagined. Max followed commands when he understood them, ignored Adam when pride made the command unnecessary, and remained suspicious of any rule that interfered with food, sleep, or the emotional balance of the house. The house itself had changed. Framed photographs hung where bare walls had once stood. A blue ceramic bowl sat beside the fruit on the kitchen counter, and someone had placed yellow curtains over the back windows. That someone was Emily Carter, the 26-year-old pediatric nurse Adam had married the previous autumn. Emily was of medium height, with a slender but sturdy frame, warm olive skin, and thick chestnut hair that fell below her shoulders when she was not working. At the hospital, she wore it twisted into a practical bun. At home, she usually tied it loosely with whatever elastic she could find. Her gray-green eyes were calm rather than soft, and she possessed the kind of patience built not from passivity, but from long practice beside frightened children and exhausted parents. Emily did not raise her voice often. When she did, Adam had learned that the argument had already gone much farther than he realized. They had met at a charity event for military families, where Adam had stood near the exit because crowded rooms made him restless. Emily had first noticed Max dropping a wet tennis ball onto Adam's polished shoe. Adam had looked down at the muddy mark, sighed, then quietly wiped Max's paws before allowing him inside. Emily later said that moment told her more about him than the uniform did. Adam could be rigid, distant, and difficult to reach, but he cared most clearly when he thought no one was watching. Their son Noah arrived 6 months after the wedding. He was a small, healthy baby with a round face, pale brown skin, a patch of dark hair that refused to lie flat, and serious blue-gray eyes inherited from neither parent in any obvious way. He cried with remarkable determination. Emily joked that Noah had Adam's lungs and her lack of respect for schedules. Max did not find the joke amusing. Before Noah, Max had understood the household. Adam left and returned. Emily worked shifts, but always greeted him. Meals happened at predictable times. The couch belonged partly to humans and mostly to Max, when no one was looking. After Noah came home, every familiar pattern broke apart. The baby cried during the night, slept through meals, and occupied the arms that once threw balls or scratched behind Max's ears. The nursery door remained closed more often. Blankets, bottles, and tiny clothes appeared in every room. Max responded with the silent outrage of a creature who had not been consulted. He began carrying Noah's soft toys into the hallway. He hid a cloth rabbit beneath the dining table and buried a yellow teething ring under his bed. When Emily sat beside Adam on the couch with Noah in her arms, Max pushed his long body between their knees until someone had to move. If Adam stood near the crib, Max leaned against his leg with enough weight to make the message clear. "He is jealous," Adam said one evening after finding a stuffed bear in Max's water bowl. "He is confused," Emily replied. "He knows the rules." "The rules changed." "He needs to adjust." Emily looked toward Max, who was watching them from the doorway. "So do we." Adam heard the words but disliked their implication. Adjustment sounded reasonable when applied to schedules, furniture, or sleeping arrangements. Applied to him, it felt like criticism. During training and deployment, change was met with discipline. A person learned the new procedure and moved forward. At home, nothing was that clean. Noah could not be ordered to stop crying. Emily could not be told to rest when worry kept her awake. Max could not be corrected into understanding why affection had suddenly become scarce. Adam tried anyway. He increased Max's morning exercise, added obedience drills, and corrected him each time he entered the nursery without permission. Max obeyed, but his energy changed. He began watching Adam more cautiously, as though every movement might produce another command. Adam noticed and told himself it was improvement. Emily noticed and knew it was distance. One night, when Noah was 10 weeks old, the baby began crying shortly after midnight. Emily fed him, changed him, rocked him, and walked the length of the bedroom until her arms trembled. Noah only cried harder. Adam had returned from several days of demanding training that afternoon, and had slept less than 4 hours in 2 nights. He stood beside the bed in a t-shirt and sweatpants, jaw tight, trying to identify a problem that could be solved. "He is fed," Adam said. "Yes." "He is dry." "Yes." "Then something hurts?" "Maybe. Or maybe he is 10 weeks old." Noah's cries rose sharply. Max began pacing outside the bedroom. His claws clicked across the hallway floor. Then he barked once, low and anxious. "Max, quiet!" Adam called. The dog stopped for several seconds. Noah continued crying. Max whined and scratched lightly at the closed door. "Adam, let him in," Emily said. "He will make it worse. He is worried. He is adding noise." Max barked again. Something inside Adam snapped, not violently, but suddenly. The crying, the barking, the fatigue, and the helplessness merged into one unbearable sound. Adam opened the door and pointed toward the hallway. "Enough. Garage, now." Max lowered his head. "Go!" The dog did not move quickly enough. Adam took him by the collar and led him through the kitchen. Max resisted only once, turning his head toward the bedroom when Noah cried again. Adam opened the garage door, pushed Max inside, and closed it firmly. The silence afterward was not relief. It was absence. Emily stood in the kitchen holding Noah against her shoulder. Her hair had come loose and dark circles marked the skin beneath her eyes. She looked tired enough to fold in half, but her voice remained steady. "He was not disobeying you. He was making the situation worse. He was afraid. He is a dog. And you are a man who has spent his entire life pretending fear becomes less real when you refuse to name it. Adam's face hardened. I am trying to help. No. You are trying to control the room because you cannot fix what is happening in it. The words struck precisely because they were true. Adam looked at Noah's red face, Emily's trembling arms, and the closed garage door. He had protected people in places where mistakes carried consequences he rarely discussed. Yet, in his own kitchen, surrounded by those who trusted him most, he felt useless. Emily shifted Noah gently. I do not need you to leave the Navy. I knew who you were when I married you. But Noah cannot grow up believing every tear is a problem he causes, and Max cannot learn that love disappears whenever he becomes inconvenient. Adam wanted to defend himself. Instead, he went back to the bedroom and took Noah from her. The baby continued crying against his chest. Adam held in too stiffly at first, then loosened his arms when Emily placed a hand over his wrist. Do not solve him, she whispered. Just stay. Noah eventually slept. Adam did not bring Max back inside. Pride told him the dog needed to remain where he had been sent. Exhaustion told him the matter could wait until morning. Somewhere beneath both was shame. But Adam had not yet learned how to let shame guide him toward repair instead of silence. At sunrise, Emily carried Noah toward the nursery and stopped in the hallway. Max was lying outside the door. The garage entrance stood partly open. The latch had not caught properly, and Max must have pushed through during the night. He had not entered the bedroom, destroyed anything, or demanded attention. He had simply returned to the place where the crying had come from and remained there, his head resting between his paws. Adam approached slowly. Max lifted his eyes but did not rise. Adam opened the nursery door. Max stood, stepped inside, and moved toward the crib. Noah was awake, one tiny hand lifted above the blanket. Max stretched his neck, sniffed the small fingers, and then lowered himself beside the crib. Adam did not say, "Good dog." Praise would have made the moment about obedience, and Max had not obeyed anyone. Adam sat on the floor beside him. For the first time, he understood that Max did not need to love Noah immediately. Just as Noah did not need to be quiet, Emily did not need to be endlessly patient, and Adam did not need to know how to repair every difficult moment. A family was not a unit waiting for the correct command. It was a group of imperfect beings learning, often badly, how to remain in the same room. Late summer pressed heavily against Virginia Beach, filling the afternoons with damp heat and turning distant thunder into a familiar warning. 3 years had passed since Max first lay outside Noah's nursery door. Adam Walker was 30 now, his shoulders broader, his face leaner, and the first faint lines of strain beginning to appear beside his dark eyes. The scar near his left eyebrow had not changed, but the man beneath it had. Adam had earned greater responsibility within his unit at Little Creek, which meant younger men watched how he moved, listened to his decisions, and trusted him when circumstances became uncertain. At work, that responsibility gave him purpose. At home, it made him increasingly difficult to live with. Max was 6 years old, a powerful adult German shepherd with a wide chest, strong black and tan legs, and a thick coat that shone when Emily brushed it. His brown eyes remained alert, but the bold curiosity of puppyhood had been replaced by something more complicated. Max could read the sound of Adam's truck before it reached the street, recognize the difference between ordinary boots and deployment boots, and identify a packed duffel long before anyone said goodbye. Noah was 3. A narrow little boy with tousled dark hair, gray-blue eyes, and an observant silence that often made adults forget how much he understood. He loved toy trucks, disliked peas, and had developed the habit of touching Max's ear whenever the house became tense. Max accepted the gesture as though it were a responsibility. Adam's absences had grown longer. Some were training rotations lasting days, others were deployments measured in months and explained to Noah only as, "Dad has work far away." Each time Adam returned, he entered the house carrying love, exhaustion, and an urgent need to restore control. He corrected Noah's bedtime within 24 hours, questioned why toys were stored in the wrong cabinet, changed the route Emily used when walking Max, and resumed obedience drills as if the dog had spent the separation forgetting everything. Emily, now 29, remained slender and strong, with olive-toned skin, gray-green eyes, and chestnut hair she usually wore in a loose knot after long shifts at the children's hospital. Motherhood had not made her softer in the helpless sense people sometimes expected. It had made her clearer. She had learned that a crying child did not always need an answer, that a frightened dog did not always need correction, and that love could become exhausting when one person insisted on defining safety for everyone else. "You have been home 11 hours, she told Adam one evening after he moved Noah's bedtime 30 minutes earlier and corrected Max for leaving his mat. "You do not need to reorganize us before breakfast." "I am not reorganizing anything." "You changed the pantry shelves. They made no sense." "They made sense to the people who lived here while you were gone." The words landed badly. Adam did not shout. He rarely did. His anger usually arrived as stillness, a tightening of the jaw, a voice made colder by restraint. "I live here too." Emily looked at him across the kitchen. "Then come home. Do not conduct an inspection." Max was lying near the table. At the change in Adam's posture, the dog rose and moved closer to Noah. Adam noticed. He pretended not to. The signs of Max's anxiety had begun months earlier. Whenever Adam pulled his dark duffel from the closet, Max stopped eating. When the navy uniform appeared on the bedroom chair, the dog followed Adam so closely that his nose touched the back of Adam's leg. If Adam closed a door, Max waited outside it. If the truck started, Max paced from the front window to the back gate until long after the engine disappeared. Adam treated the behavior as a training problem. He ordered Max to remain on his mat while he packed. He corrected the pacing. He removed the food bowl after 15 minutes when Max refused to eat. Emily tried leaving one of Adam's worn shirts near Max's bed. Rachel visited more often. Noah sat beside the dog and offered pieces of kibble from his palm. None of it changed what the duffel meant. On the morning of Adam's next departure, Max positioned himself in front of the bedroom closet. Adam moved him aside. Max returned. Adam gave the command to stay, but Max rose the moment the zipper closed. "Enough," Adam said. Max lowered his head, though his body continued to tremble. Noah stood in the hallway holding a red toy truck against his chest. "Max thinks you go away." "I do go away." "He thinks forever." Adam glanced at Emily, expecting her to correct the child. She did not. "I always come back," Adam said. Noah looked down at the toy. "Max does not know always." Adam had no answer that would fit inside a 3-year-old's understanding. He crouched, touched Noah's shoulder, then reached toward Max. The dog allowed the contact, but did not lean into it. 3 nights after Adam left, a storm moved inland from the coast. Wind struck the house in sudden bursts, and rain blurred the windows until the streetlights looked like pale stains. Max had been restless since afternoon. He refused dinner, paced between the doors, and flinched at every distant rumble. Emily put Noah to bed early and checked the back gate twice. The wooden fence was old but sturdy. One lower board had begun to split, and the metal latch sometimes needed to be lifted before it caught properly. Emily secured it, then returned inside. The thunder arrived after midnight. Max ran from the living room to the bedroom, then back toward the kitchen. Emily tried guiding him into the interior hallway where the noise was quieter. He resisted, panting heavily, his nails sliding against the floor. "No one is leaving," she told him. "Not tonight." Another crack shook the windows. Max bolted toward the back door. Before Emily could catch his collar, he struck the door with his front paws. The handle held. He spun, whining, then tried again. Noah appeared in the hallway, frightened and half awake. "Mommy?" Emily turned toward him for only a few seconds. By the time she looked back, Max had pushed through the loose screen panel and reached the yard. Emily ran outside barefoot. Lightning lit the fence white for an instant. The damaged lower board had split completely, leaving a narrow opening near the gate. Max had forced his body through it. He was gone. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later wearing a raincoat over her nightdress, her silver-streaked hair flattened against her face. At 60, she remained compact and straight-backed, though worry now showed more openly in the lines around her mouth. Their neighbor, Linda Hayes, joined them with a flashlight and a reflective vest. Linda was a 63-year-old retired mail carrier, tall and angular, with short white hair, deep brown skin, and long arms that made every gesture look decisive. She had delivered mail through hurricanes, heat waves, and the confused years after her husband's death. She knew every alley, drainage path, and covered porch within several blocks. "A scared dog will not choose the prettiest route," Linda said. "He will choose the first place that feels smaller than the storm." Emily stayed near the house with Noah, while Rachel and Linda searched by car. They checked the park, the drainage channel, the convenience store awning, and the fenced yard behind a church. Emily called Max's name until her throat hurt. Each time headlights appeared, Noah ran to the front window. "Is that Daddy?" he asked once. "No." "Is that Max?" "No, sweetheart." The repeated answer began to feel cruel. Near 3 in the morning, Linda remembered the abandoned elementary school 6 blocks inland. Its main building had been closed for renovations, but a covered walkway still ran beside the gymnasium. They found Max beneath it, pressed against a brick wall. His coat was soaked and streaked with mud. Blood marked one front paw where a broken edge of the fence had cut between the pads. Rachel approached slowly. Max did not growl, but he did not rise either. "You poor, foolish boy," she whispered. For many people, compassion becomes easiest after danger has passed. Fear can make kindness impatient. It can cause a person to demand gratitude from the one who has just survived. Rachel had learned, through Adam and through grief, that frightened creatures rarely behaved in ways that comforted those trying to help them. He sat on the wet concrete several feet away and waited until Max crawled toward her. Adam returned 3 days later. He entered the house still carrying his duffel and saw the bandage on Max's paw. Emily expected him to kneel, to touch the dog, perhaps to show relief. Instead, Adam walked directly to the backyard. He inspected the broken board, tested the latch, and examined the damaged screen. When he came back inside, his face was rigid. "Who checked the gate?" Emily stared at him. "Max was missing for nearly 4 hours. I asked who checked it. I did." "You knew the board was damaged?" "I knew it had a crack. I did not know he could break through it. It should have been repaired." Emily's exhaustion sharpened into anger. "Do you understand what you are doing? I am making sure it does not happen again. No." "You are finding someone to blame because blame makes you feel less helpless." The gate failed. Max was terrified, and that is exactly why the gate needed to hold. Emily stepped closer. "You think safety means nothing ever goes wrong. The rest of us have learned that safety means we can tell the truth after something does." Adam looked toward Noah, who stood behind the sofa with one hand on Max's back. Emily followed his gaze. "Your son hides when you are angry. Your dog stops eating when he sees your uniform. They are not afraid because you leave. They are afraid because when you return, you make their fear feel like a failure." Adam's expression changed, but only slightly. "Everything I do is to protect this family." A house is not safe when everyone inside it is afraid to tell you they are hurting. That night, Adam found Max lying in the laundry room. The dog had chosen the narrow space between the dryer and the wall, where only one side of his body was exposed. Adam sat on the floor. "Max!" The dog's ears moved, but he did not turn. Adam extended one hand, palm open. The same hand that had fed Max, trained him, lifted him as a puppy, and held him during countless drives home. Max saw it and drew his body closer to the wall. Adam let his hand fall. Max had not left the house. He was only a few feet away. Yet for the first time since puppyhood, the dog no longer believed Adam's hand was a place of safety. And there was no command Adam could give to make that belief return. Early autumn returned to Virginia Beach with cooler evenings, long amber sunsets, and salt air moving gently through the streets near Little Creek. 3 years had passed since the night Max ran away. Adam Walker was 33 now, still broad-shouldered and physically disciplined, but the hard angles of his face had grown more severe. Fine lines had appeared beside his dark eyes, and a few silver strands showed near his temples when the light struck them. He remained dependable in every visible way. His uniform was immaculate, bills were paid early, doors were checked twice, and his family never lacked food or shelter. Yet Emily had learned that a person could provide everything except emotional safety and still believe he had done enough. Max was 9, no longer young but not yet truly old. His black and tan coat remained thick and handsome, though silver hairs had begun gathering around his muzzle. He moved with confidence, but he no longer wasted energy chasing every bird or racing up the stairs. His injured paw had healed, leaving only a slight hesitation after long walks. Max still watched Adam closely, especially when a duffel appeared. The dog no longer panicked as violently as before, but he had learned caution. Trust had returned, in pieces rather than all at once, rebuilt through quiet mornings, shorter commands, and Adam's gradual decision to stop reaching for Max whenever the dog turned away. Noah was 6, tall for his age but still narrow through the shoulders, with dark, unruly hair and gray-blue eyes that seemed to collect questions faster than adults could answer them. He had inherited Emily's sensitivity and Adam's habit of studying a room before speaking. At school, teachers described him as thoughtful. At home, that thoughtfulness sometimes looked like silence. The ultimatum came after Adam returned from a training rotation and criticized Noah for crying over a broken model airplane. The toy had taken the boy 3 days to assemble. One wing snapped when Max's tail swept it from the coffee table. "It can be fixed," Adam said. Noah covered his face. "Crying will not repair it." Emily looked up from the kitchen. "That is not why he is crying." Adam exhaled. "Then why?" "Because he worked hard on it. Because he is 6. Because disappointment hurts before it becomes manageable." Adam bent to gather the pieces, treating the problem as solved now that the damage could be measured. Noah moved closer to Max instead. That evening, after Noah was asleep, Emily stood at the kitchen counter with both hands wrapped around an untouched mug of tea. At 32, she looked more tired than she had when Noah was a newborn. Her chestnut hair was cut to her shoulders now, practical for hospital shifts, and pale shadows rested beneath her gray-green eyes. He had become firmer over the years, not because love had weakened, but because constant accommodation had begun to feel like participation in her own unhappiness. "I am taking Noah to my parents' house," she said. Adam stopped drying a plate. "For how long?" "That depends on whether anything changes." His face closed immediately. "You are threatening me." "I am telling you what I can no longer allow." "He is safe here." "He hides his feelings from you. Max watches your hands before deciding whether to come near. I rehearse difficult conversations in my head for hours because I never know whether you will listen or turn everything into a defense." "I do listen." "You wait for your turn to explain why you are right." Adam placed the plate down too carefully. "What exactly do you want?" "I want you to talk to someone who understands military families, not a friend, not your mother, someone trained to recognize what we keep repeating." Adam's refusal lasted 4 days. He agreed only after Noah asked whether he had made Emily want to leave. The question unsettled him more than any accusation. Adam could accept being judged harshly. He could not accept his son carrying responsibility for a conflict created by adults. The family counseling program met in a modest building several miles from the base. The walls were painted soft beige, the chairs were deliberately mismatched, and no one wore a uniform inside. Their counselor was Dr. Miriam Cole, a 51-year-old clinical psychologist with a tall, narrow frame, deep brown skin, short natural curls threaded with gray, and dark eyes that remained steady without becoming intrusive. Miriam spoke slowly and never filled silence merely because it made others uncomfortable. She had spent 16 years working with military families after losing her older brother, an army medic, to complications from injuries sustained overseas. The loss had not made her suspicious of service members. It had made her impatient with the myth that strength required emotional disappearance. During the first session, Miriam asked Adam what fear felt like in his body. "It depends on the situation," he replied. "In your home." "I am not afraid in my home." Emily looked away. Miriam did not challenge him directly. "What happens when something cannot be controlled?" "I find the part that can." "And if there is no controllable part?" "There is always a controllable part." Miriam leaned back. "That answer has probably kept people alive." Adam relaxed slightly. "It may also be making your family lonely." He did not return the following week. Emily went without him. She did not beg. Miriam did not call. 3 weeks later, Adam appeared 10 minutes early and sat near the door. Progress did not arrive as a transformation. Adam still became defensive. He once walked out when Miriam asked whether his father's death had taught him that grief made people unreliable. Another time he accused Emily of presenting him as a villain. But he returned after both incidents. For Adam, returning was not a small act. It was the first way he learned to apologize without knowing how to say the words. He also changed the rituals surrounding deployment. Instead of hiding the duffel until the last moment, he placed it in the bedroom several days in advance and allowed Max to inspect it. He packed slowly, pausing to take the dog outside or sit near him without commands. He left a worn shirt on Max's bed so the familiar scent would remain after the truck disappeared. Before leaving, he told Noah what he knew and admitted what he did not. "I will be gone for several weeks," Adam said before one assignment. "I expect to come back on this date, but plans can change." "Could you not come back?" Noah asked. Emily watched Adam carefully. He could have said no. The old answer rose immediately, a simple promise, comforting and false. Instead, Adam knelt. "There is always a risk, but I will do everything I can to come home." Noah did not look comforted. Honesty rarely offered the smooth relief of a lie. But he nodded because something in his father's face told him he had been trusted with the truth. When Adam returned, he no longer demanded a perfect reunion. Max sometimes circled him before approaching. Once the dog ignored him for nearly an hour and remained beside Rachel. Adam felt the old sting of rejection but did not call Max repeatedly or pull him close. He unpacked, showered, and sat on the porch. Eventually, Max came outside and lay near his boots. People often imagine healing as warmth returning to a relationship. In reality, healing can feel colder at first. It removes familiar excuses. It asks everyone to see what has happened without immediately covering it with forgiveness. One evening near the end of October, Noah sat on the living room floor beneath the light spilling through the glass front door. The old railway-style porch lamp cast a warm, amber square across the wall. Noah lifted his hand and watched the shape beside it stretch into a dark, thin figure. Adam sat at the dining table repairing the model airplane from months earlier. He had replaced the broken wing, but the seam remained visible. "Dad," Noah said, "why do I have shadows?" Adam glanced up. "Because the light is behind you." Noah moved his fingers. The shadow moved with him. "Do people have shadows because there is something bad inside them?" Adam set down the glue. Max was lying nearby, muzzle silvering, eyes half closed but ears turned toward the boy's voice. Emily stood in the kitchen doorway drying her hands on a towel. "No," Adam said. "A shadow is not the bad part of you." "Then what is it?" Adam looked toward the lamp, then at the outline of his son on the wall. He thought of Max beneath the old school awning, of Emily standing in the kitchen telling him that their home was not safe simply because the doors were locked, and of himself leaving Miriam's office because one question had reached a place he did not want touched. "Sometimes it is just the shape fear makes when light finds us," he said. Noah considered that. "Are grown-ups scared?" "Yes." "You?" The honest answer felt exposed in his mouth. "Yes." "Of what?" Adam looked at Emily. She did not answer for him. "Of not coming home," he said. "Of coming home and not knowing how to be here. Of hurting people when I think I am protecting them." Noah's face tightened. "Every time you wear your uniform and take the big bag, I think maybe you will never come back." Adam moved to the floor beside him. He did not offer certainty he could not guarantee. He did not say Noah was too young to worry. He did not call fear weakness. Noah whispered, "I am scared." Adam sat close enough that their shoulders touched. "You are not alone." Max rose slowly, crossed the rug, and rested his graying muzzle across Noah's legs. Outside, the porch lamp continued burning. It was not a promise that Adam would always return. No light could make such a promise. It was something humbler and perhaps more honest. While one person was away, another would remain beside the door, keeping a place for them in the darkness. 2 years later, winter loosened its grip on Virginia Beach with hesitant warmth, leaving damp mornings, pale sunlight, and small green shoots pushing through the soil beside the porch. Adam Walker was 35 now. His dark hair showed a few silver strands near the temples, and the lines beside his eyes had deepened from years of salt, wind, interrupted sleep, and the strain of carrying responsibilities he rarely discussed. He remained broad-shouldered and physically disciplined, still serving at Little Creek, but age had begun introducing him to a truth he had once believed belonged only to other men. Strength did not disappear all at once. It left quietly, taking a little speed, a little flexibility, and a little confidence before anyone admitted something had changed. Max was 11. The German Shepherd's black and tan coat remained thick, though gray had spread around his muzzle and beneath his eyes. His chest was still powerful, his ears alert, and strangers continued to call him handsome. Yet Adam had noticed small differences. Max paused before climbing the porch steps. He took longer to rise from the hardwood floor. During cold mornings, one rear leg trembled for several seconds before carrying his weight. Max disguised discomfort the way proud creatures often did, not through courage exactly, but through habit. For most of his life, movement had been simple. His body had obeyed before doubt could interfere. Now he sometimes looked toward a familiar distance as though remembering how easily he once crossed it. Noah was 8. Lean and long-legged, with unruly dark hair and thoughtful gray-blue eyes. He had become old enough to recognize changes adults tried to hide, though not old enough to understand why they hid them. One Saturday morning, he watched Max struggle to stand after sleeping beside the couch. "His back legs look tired," Noah said. Adam clipped the leash onto Max's collar. "He slept in a bad position." Emily, now 34, looked up from the kitchen table. Her chestnut hair was tied into a loose knot, and her calm, gray-green eyes followed Adam more carefully than his explanation deserved. "He has been sleeping in bad positions for 3 weeks?" Adam did not answer. Denial rarely sounds like denial to the person using it. To Adam, it felt like patience. He was waiting for Max to return to normal. The limp became impossible to dismiss during a morning walk. Max had always loved the route through the neighborhood, past Linda Hayes's garden, around the small park, and back along a row of live oaks. Years earlier, he had pulled Adam toward every new smell. Now he walked slowly, left rear legs stiff, head lowered. Halfway home, Max stopped beneath a tree and sat down. Adam waited several seconds. "Come on." Max remained still. "Max, heel." The dog tried to stand, shifted his weight, then sat again. Noah crouched beside him. "Maybe he hurts." Adam looked at the remaining distance. It was less than half a mile. "He needs to keep the joint moving." Emily had suggested that they shorten the route, but Adam had interpreted shortening as surrender. He gave the leash a light pull. Max rose, took 2 uneven steps, then stopped. Adam pulled again, more firmly. A low growl came from Max's chest. Noah jumped backward. The sound was brief, but it changed the air. Adam released the leash and stared at the dog. In 11 years, Max had barked in warning, growled at strangers near the gate, and protested when frightened. But he had never directed that sound at Adam during an ordinary walk. For one raw second, Adam felt betrayed. It was an unreasonable feeling, and human beings are often most wounded by expectations they never clearly expressed. Adam had fed Max, trained him, searched for him, slept beside him, and rebuilt trust after damaging it. Some hidden part of him had believed that history should purchase permanent gentleness. But pain does not consult history before speaking. Noah stood several feet away, frightened less by Max than by Adam's expression. "Is he dangerous now?" he asked. Adam looked at the gray around Max's muzzle. "I don't know." Max lowered himself onto the sidewalk, panting hard. The growl had not been aggression in the way Adam feared. It had been the only language left after quieter signals had been ignored. They took Max to a veterinary clinic that afternoon. Dr. Helen Brooks examined him in a room with blue walls and a rubber mat across the floor. Helen was 48, tall and broad-hipped, with freckled, fair skin, short auburn hair turning silver above the ears, and strong hands that moved gently around frightened animals. She had a square face, a direct gaze, and the unhurried manner of someone who had learned that worried owners often needed observation before advice. Years earlier, Helen had cared for her own aging Labrador through severe joint disease. The experience had made her compassionate without making her sentimental. She did not describe every decline as a tragedy, nor did she pretend love could prevent the body from changing. She watched Max walk, tested the range of motion in his hips, and ran her fingers carefully along his spine. Max tensed when she reached his lower back. Imaging confirmed arthritis in his hips and degenerative changes along the spine. "He is not becoming mean," Helen said. "He is hurting." Adam stood with his arms folded. He growled at me. "You pulled him when standing was painful." "I barely pulled." "To you?" Helen rested a hand on the examination table. "Pain is measured by the one feeling it, not the one observing it." Noah glanced at Adam, then looked away. Helen explained the treatment plan. Anti-inflammatory medication, controlled exercise, fewer stairs, traction rugs on slippery floors, weight monitoring, and shorter walks based on Max's condition rather than Adam's old expectations. She warned that forcing a painful dog could increase fear and defensive behavior. "He used to run 5 miles, Adam said. "He is not the dog he used to be." The sentence struck Adam as unnecessarily cruel, though Helen had spoken without cruelty. "He is still Max," she added, "but being the same dog does not mean having the same body." At home, Adam created a schedule: medication at 7, gentle stretching after breakfast, 10-minute walks twice daily. He measured Max's pace, recorded how long it took him to stand, and marked good days and bad days in a notebook. Emily found the pages on the kitchen counter, filled with columns and numbers. "You turned his arthritis into a mission," she said. "I am tracking progress." "What happens if there is no progress?" "There will be." "And if the goal is not improvement?" Adam looked at her. "What if the goal is comfort?" Emily asked. He had no useful answer. Comfort had always sounded temporary to him, something offered while waiting for a real solution. He was only beginning to understand that sometimes comfort was the real work. Rachel's difficulty became apparent around the same time. At 62, she still carried herself with the straight-backed dignity of the librarian she had once been. Her silver-streaked hair was now mostly gray, cut at her shoulders, and her hazel eyes remained sharp enough to make dishonesty uncomfortable. But she began misunderstanding conversations. She answered questions no one had asked, missed Noah calling from another room, and once left Adam standing on the porch because she had not heard the bell. When Emily gently suggested a hearing test, Rachel became defensive. "My hearing is fine." People mumble. "You did not hear the smoke alarm beep," Adam said. "The batteries are weak." "The alarm is designed to be heard through a closed door." Rachel's mouth tightened. "I am not discussing this." Adam recognized the posture, the cold tone, the insistence that evidence was disrespect. He had worn the same defenses in Miriam's office. Later, he found Rachel watching Max struggle with the porch steps. She looked away when she noticed Adam beside her. "You are afraid they will treat you differently," he said. Rachel gave him a sharp glance. "Who?" "Everyone." "I am not afraid." "That is what I used to say." She almost smiled, but pride stopped it. "And now you think counseling has made you wise?" "No, it has made me easier to annoy." That earned a brief laugh. Then Rachel looked back at Max. "It is humiliating when the body changes the rules without asking." Adam understood she was no longer speaking only about the dog. He decided to build a ramp. He measured the porch height, purchased treated lumber, and spent an entire Saturday cutting boards in the driveway. Noah helped by holding screws, losing half of them in the grass, and asking questions about angles Adam could not answer without becoming irritated. By sunset, the ramp was sturdy, carpeted for traction, and wide enough for Max to use safely. Max hated it. For 4 days he approached the ramp, sniffed it, and turned toward the steps. Adam blocked the steps and pointed. "Up." Max stood still. Adam repeated the command. Max backed away. "Maybe he thinks it is unstable," Noah said. "It is stronger than the porch." "He does not know that." Adam tried treats. Max stretched his neck far enough to take one, then retreated. Adam considered using the leash to guide him up, but remembered the growl beneath the live oak and Helen's words about pain belonging to the one who felt it. On the 5th evening, the porch light came on as the sky faded into blue-gray. Rachel stood near the door, pretending not to strain to hear the conversation below. Noah waited several steps behind Max. Adam stood beside the ramp rather than above it. He did not point. He did not tighten the leash. He placed one foot on the ramp and waited. Max looked at him, then at the steps he had climbed for years. The old route was familiar, but familiarity no longer made it kind. Slowly, Max placed one front paw onto the carpeted board. He paused. Adam moved one small step forward. Max followed with the second paw. His rear legs trembled as they took his weight. Noah remained silent. Rachel's hand rested against the porch railing beneath the warm lamp. Adam matched Max's pace, neither leading nor pulling. The climb took less than a minute, but within that minute, something shifted. Max was not performing a command. Adam was not correcting weakness. They were simply adjusting to a truth neither had chosen. At the top, Max stood, breathing heavily. He no longer resembled the young dog who had once raced through the hallway with Adam's boots in his mouth. His muzzle was gray, his legs uncertain, and his body had begun asking for mercy instead of distance. Yet he had reached the porch on his own feet. Adam knelt beside him but did not throw his arms around him. He only placed one hand on the floor, close enough for Max to choose. After a moment, Max rested his paw across Adam's fingers. 3 years later, late autumn settled over Virginia Beach beneath a pale sky, bringing cold rain to the windows and leaving the trees around Little Creek nearly bare. Adam Walker was 38 and still serving as a Navy SEAL. His shoulders remained broad beneath the green-gray-brown camouflage of his Navy working uniform Type 3, but silver had spread farther through his dark hair, and the lines around his eyes no longer disappeared when he rested. Noah was 11 now, lean and long-legged, with dark hair that still resisted every comb, and gray-blue eyes that had become skilled at noticing what adults hope to conceal. Emily, 37, wore her chestnut hair shorter than before, and the patience in her face had deepened into something more honest. She no longer confused supporting Adam with protecting him from every painful truth. Max was 14. His once dark muzzle had turned almost completely white. The black saddle across his back had faded, and the strong hind legs that once carried him through miles of sand and woodland now trembled when he stood too long. His hearing had diminished until only sharp sounds or vibrations reached him. His eyesight had clouded, especially in dim rooms. Some nights he woke confused and wandered through the house, stopping beside the wrong door or staring into a corner as though waiting for the walls to explain where he was. Adam began sleeping downstairs, so Max would not wake alone. He placed rugs across the hardwood floors and left a small lamp burning near the hallway. When Max became disoriented, Adam touched the floor before approaching so the vibration would warn him. Sometimes Max recognized him immediately. Other times the old dog stiffened until Adam lowered himself into view. Those moments frightened Adam more than he admitted. Max had known him through every version of his adult life. The young man who believed rules could prevent loss, the absent husband, the impatient father, and the soldier who had slowly learned that returning home required more than arriving at the door. The possibility that Max might forget him felt like losing part of their history before the dog was even gone. The change from ordinary old age to serious illness came quietly. Max stopped finishing meals, his belly became tense, and short walks left him exhausted. Dr. Helen Brooks examined him at the same clinic where she had diagnosed his arthritis years earlier. Helen was 51 now, her short auburn hair almost entirely silver at the temples, her square face calm as she studied the scans. She did not soften facts until they became meaningless. She also did not deliver them without compassion. "The disease is advanced," she said. "We can manage discomfort for a little while, but we cannot cure it." Adam stood beside the examination table with one hand resting on Max's shoulder. "What about surgery?" At his age, with his spine and heart under this much strain, surgery would likely take more from him than it gives. There are specialists. Yes. Different medications. Yes. Then we have options. Helen held his gaze. You have choices. That is not always the same as having a cure. Adam heard the distinction and rejected it. Within 48 hours, he contacted 2 specialists, requested copies of every scan, changed Max's medication schedule, and created a chart recording food, water, sleep, movement, breathing, and response to touch. He measured hope in numbers because numbers did not ask him to say goodbye. Emily watched Max's world shrink. The dog who once followed Adam through every room now remained on one blanket for hours. The dog who once stole Noah's toys sometimes turned his head away from food. Good days still came, but they were smaller. A few minutes in the sun, half a piece of chicken, one slow walk to the porch. One evening, Emily found Adam entering figures into a notebook while Max slept beside him. You recorded that he stood for 32 seconds, she said. Yesterday it was 24. And after that? Adam did not answer. He slept for 4 hours because standing exhausted him. That does not mean we stop trying, no. But trying should be for Max, not against what is happening. Adam closed the notebook. You think I should give up. I think you are calling it hope because fear sounds less honorable. The sentence made him angry, but anger no longer protected him as cleanly as it once had. He looked at Max's white muzzle and knew Emily had not spoken to wound him. Noah's grief was less orderly. He became irritable at school and refused to sit beside Max some evenings. When Emily asked why, Noah said he was busy. The truth surfaced one night when Max stumbled near the kitchen and Noah suddenly shouted at him to stop. The room went still. Max lowered himself carefully to the floor. Noah's face crumpled. I'm mad at him. Adam started to correct the words, but Emily touched his arm. Why? She asked. Because he's leaving. Noah wiped his eyes angrily. He knows we love him, and he's still leaving. Then I feel bad because he can't help it. Emily sat beside him. Grief does not always make people gentle. Noah looked toward Adam, expecting judgment. Adam remembered every time he had mistaken fear for disobedience. "You are allowed to be angry," he said. "You are not allowed to hurt him. Both things can be true." Noah crossed the room and sat near Max without touching him. After several minutes, Max moved one paw until it rested against Noah's shoe. Rachel visited the following evening. At 65, she wore small hearing aids she no longer tried to hide. Her silver hair framed a face softened by age, but still sharpened by hazel eyes that missed little. She sat beneath the old porch lamp while Adam adjusted Max's blanket. "I used to tell you that light meant someone was waiting," she said. Adam looked toward the lamp. "You were right." "Not entirely." Rachel folded her hands. "I left it on because I could not stand the thought that you might need me somewhere I could not reach. Turning on a light was useless, but it gave my hands something to do." Adam sat beside her. "I thought worry was weakness," he said. "No. Worry is love after it discovers it has no authority." The next morning, Adam dressed for the base before sunrise. Max lay near the hallway watching through clouded eyes. The moment Adam appeared in his NWU Type 3 uniform, Max tried to stand. For 14 years, the uniform had meant departure. Even when his hearing failed, Max still recognized its shape. "Stay down," Adam said gently. Max pushed himself upright anyway. He took one step, then another, attempting to follow Adam toward the front door. His hind legs gave way. He collapsed onto the rug. Adam dropped beside him, still wearing his uniform and black boots. He gathered Max carefully against his chest. The old dog's head rested beneath Adam's chin, light in a way that frightened him. Noah stood in the hallway. Adam had cried privately before, in a parked truck, beneath shower water, once in Miriam's office after everyone else had left. He had never cried openly in front of his son. Now the sound came without permission. He pressed his face into Max's fur and wept while Noah watched. Noah knelt beside them and placed one hand on Adam's shoulder. No one told either of them to be strong. That afternoon, Adam went to the base only long enough to complete urgent responsibilities and arrange leave. When he returned, he was still in uniform. Emily met him at the door. She did not need to explain. Max had stopped eating and could no longer rise without pain. Dr. Helen had already spoken with the family and agreed to help Max pass peacefully in a familiar place. Adam chose the quiet woodland trail beyond the edge of the city, where he and Max had walked when the dog was young. Emily drove while Adam sat in the back beside Max. Noah held the old railway-style porch lamp in his lap, though there was no practical reason to bring it. Some objects become necessary only after usefulness has ended. The forest was cold and still. Fallen leaves covered the ground, and late sunlight passed through the bare branches in narrow, golden lines. Adam carried Max to a clearing beside the trail. 14 years earlier, the young dog had raced through that place, vanishing behind trees and returning with mud on his chest and triumph in his eyes. Now Adam sat on the earth in his Navy uniform and held Max against him. Emily and Noah remained close. Rachel stood beneath a tree with the lamp glowing faintly in her hands. Dr. Helen gave the family time, then quietly helped Max become free of pain. She stepped back when his body relaxed. Adam placed his cheek against Max's white head, the same way he had held the 8-week-old puppy in their first photograph. Max's breathing grew softer. His clouded eyes rested near Adam's face, no longer searching the room or fearing the next departure. "You're not alone," Adam whispered. For years, Adam had believed home was something a person protected with locks, schedules, and readiness. Max had spent a lifetime teaching him otherwise. Home was the place where fear did not have to behave. It was the hand that stayed open after trust had been wounded. It was the floor beside a frightened dog, the light left burning, and the family that remained when nothing could be fixed. Adam held Max closer. "You are home." Max released one final, quiet breath in the arms of the soldier who had raised him from a puppy. The uniform Adam wore had once made Max fear that he was leaving. On that last morning, it became the clothing of the man who stayed. 6 months after Max's final morning, Spring returned to Virginia Beach without asking whether the Walker family was ready for anything to begin again. Warm rain darkened the sidewalks, gulls argued above the rooftops, and young leaves unfolded along the streets near Little Creek. Adam Walker was still 38 and still serving as a Navy SEAL. Each morning he dressed in his Navy working uniform Type 3, checked his pockets, fastened his boots, and left the house before the neighborhood had fully awakened. His movements remained precise, but one part of the routine no longer belonged to the present. After climbing into his truck, Adam would glance toward the passenger seat. For a fraction of a second he expected to see Max sitting there with his ears raised, watching the windshield as though every short drive were a mission requiring his supervision. The seat was always empty. Adam never corrected the habit. Some mistakes were not failures of attention. They were evidence that love had lived in the body long enough to become instinct. The house had changed in small, uneven ways. Emily had washed Max's blankets, folded them, and placed them in a cedar chest. The food bowl had been removed from the kitchen because Noah could not stop looking at it during breakfast. The water bowl remained near the laundry room for almost 2 months before Adam finally picked it up one evening and stood holding it as though he had forgotten what objects were for. Max's collar still hung from a wooden hook beside the front door. Its leather had softened with age, and several strands of pale fur remained caught beneath the metal buckle. Some mornings Adam passed without looking. On others, he rested 2 fingers against the worn leather before leaving for the base. No one suggested getting another dog. Rachel once saw a German Shepherd puppy advertised by a local rescue and closed the page before showing anyone. Emily understood that another animal might someday enter their home, but she refused to use a new life to cover the outline of the old one. Noah was less certain. At 11, he had begun to understand that grief could contain opposite wishes without resolving them. He wanted a dog in the house again. He also felt angry at the idea of another dog sleeping where Max had slept. In Noah's bedroom, 2 photographs stood on the desk beneath the window. The first showed Adam at 24, young-faced and almost clean-shaven, holding an 8-week-old Max against his chest. The puppy's oversized paws rested on Adam's uniform, and one folded ear made him look unimpressed by the seriousness of the photograph. The second had been taken in the woods on Max's last day. Adam was 38, his face marked by time, his cheek resting against the old German Shepherd's white head. He still wore his NWU Type 3 uniform. Noah had chosen not to frame the photograph beautifully. The simple wooden frame had a slight dent on one corner, and the image sat a little crooked behind the glass. Emily asked whether he wanted help fixing it. "No," Noah said. "It was not a perfect day." Emily understood. Human beings often try to polish memories after death, removing irritation, exhaustion, guilt, and all the ordinary moments when love failed to look noble. Noah did not want Max turned into a perfect dog or Adam into a perfect owner. He wanted the truth. They had hurt each other, frightened each other, forgiven imperfectly, and stayed. Adam continued attending occasional sessions with Dr. Miriam Cole, though he no longer entered her office as though preparing for interrogation. During one visit, Miriam asked what he missed most. "The sound of him walking through the house," Adam said. "What else?" Adam looked toward the window. "Having someone happy that I came back." Miriam waited. "That sounds unfair to Emily and Noah." "It sounds honest." Adam rubbed his hands together. "Max did not need an explanation when I came home different." "No," Miriam said, "but he did need time. You spent years learning that." The observation stayed with Adam. He had once believed unconditional love meant Max would accept whatever version of him returned through the door. In reality, Max had offered something harder and more valuable. The dog had remained connected to Adam, while still reacting honestly to fear, neglect, and broken trust. Max's love had not excused Adam. It had given him reasons to change. At the base, Adam began noticing younger service members repeating patterns he recognized. They prepared carefully for departure, but rarely considered what their absence did to those who remained. Some left children too young to understand time. Others left spouses carrying responsibilities that could not be listed on a schedule. Several left pets who recognized the uniform, the packed bags, and the closing door but could not understand duty. Adam volunteered one afternoon each week with a family readiness program serving military households during deployments. He did not present himself as a counselor. He helped families create predictable departure routines for children and animals, arranged lists of trusted caregivers, and spoke to service members about returning without expecting a household to freeze in place during their absence. At the first meeting, Adam stood before 12 people in a community room with folding chairs and badly brewed coffee. He wore civilian clothes, which made him feel more exposed than a uniform would have. Emily sat near the back, not because he needed supervision, but because he had asked her to come. Adam did not begin with Max's death. He began with the 8-week-old puppy who had scratched at a crate during a storm, while a 24-year-old man lay in bed believing consistency mattered more than comfort. "I thought discipline and love were almost the same thing," Adam said. "Both required commitment, both required boundaries. The problem was that I used discipline whenever love made me feel helpless." No one interrupted. "I thought silence meant strength. Sometimes it only meant my family had to guess whether I cared. I thought keeping Max alive as long as possible was the same as taking care of him. Near the end, those became two different things." A woman in the second row began crying quietly. Adam did not rush to reassure her or turn her tears into a lesson. He had finally learned that another person's pain did not always require him to move closer. Sometimes respect meant allowing grief enough room to breathe. After the meeting, Emily joined him in the hallway. "You told them about the crate," she said. "I left out the part about him destroying my boot." "That was Max's finest work," Adam smiled. The expression arrived slowly, but it was real. Their marriage had not become effortless after Max's death. Adam still withdrew when overwhelmed. Emily still became angry when she had to ask several times what he was thinking. The difference was that Adam now tried to speak before silence hardened into distance. Sometimes the sentence was no more than, "I am having a bad day and I do not know why." Emily had learned not to reward every admission with excessive gratitude. Communication was not a favor Adam performed for his family. It was part of living among people he loved. Rachel's hearing aids had become another ordinary part of family life. At 65, she wore them openly, with her silver hair tucked behind her ears instead of arranged to hide the devices. She still occasionally answered the wrong question, then blamed everyone else for speaking while chewing. But when she missed something, she asked for it to be repeated rather than pretending. One Sunday, Noah asked whether she disliked the hearing aids. "I dislike needing them," Rachel replied. "That is different." "Do they make everything sound normal?" "No. They make things sound possible." Adam looked at her across the dinner table. Years earlier, he would have heard sadness in the answer and tried to remove it. Now he understood that possible was not a lesser word. Possible could hold an entire life. That evening, after Emily and Rachel went inside, Adam remained on the porch. The old railway-style lamp stood on the small table where Rachel had placed it 14 years earlier. Its brass frame was dull, one glass panel carried a faint scratch, and the bulb had been replaced many times. Adam reached down and switched it on. Warm light spread across the porch and stretched his shadow along the walkway. For a moment, he waited for another shape to appear beside it. Pointed ears, a long back, the patient outline of a German shepherd sitting near his leg. His mind knew Max was gone. The body was slower to accept what the mind repeated. The door opened behind him. Noah stepped onto the porch wearing sweatpants and one of Adam's old Navy t-shirts. At 11, he was still small beside his father, but his shoulders were beginning to lose their childhood roundness. He stood near Adam without speaking. A second shadow joined the first on the ground. Noah did not ask whether Adam had stopped missing Max. Adam did not say he was healed. Neither of them tried to make the evening meaningful before it had become meaningful on its own. They remained beneath the lamp, shoulders almost touching. Max was not there. The empty place beside Adam remained empty, and loving his family did not make that absence disappear. but Adam finally understood that light had never been meant to destroy every shadow. Without darkness, light had no shape to reveal. Without loss, love did not become false, it became visible in different places. Sometimes it appeared in a collar left beside the door, sometimes in a photograph no one wanted straightened, and sometimes, when a man believed only one shadow remained, the light allowed him to notice that someone else had quietly stepped beside him. Max's life reminds us that love is not proven by how tightly we hold on, but by how faithfully we stay when strength fades, fear rises, and nothing can be fixed. Adam spent years believing discipline could protect everyone he loved, yet Max taught him that a locked door is not the same as a safe home, and silence is not always courage. People often hide their fear because they worry it will make them look weak, but God may work through the very places we try hardest to conceal. Sometimes the miracle is not that loss is prevented. Sometimes it is that love changes us before goodbye arrives, softening a guarded heart and bringing a family closer beneath the same light. Those we love may leave an empty place behind, but emptiness does not mean God has abandoned us. It can become a sacred space where gratitude, memory, and compassion continue to grow. Share this story with someone who has loved and lost a faithful companion. Tell us in the comments about the animal that changed your life and subscribe for more stories of courage, mercy, and hope. May God comfort every grieving heart, protect your family, and leave a light burning along every road that leads you home.